real estate, which is really one of the most high-touch human industries in our economy, without the human beings, how is that going to work? Well, I think we're on a path to find out, and I don't believe we're going to like the answer. I'm Bill Gross. This is my real estate market update. Every week, I go through the real estate news, and we summarize the main topic, which I think this week is about how our industry and our government regulators are trying to drive the humans out of the business like so many others. But before we get into that, let's real quick look at where the market is and make sure we're talking from a position of statistics and knowledge, not just kind of guessing where things are going to head. In any economy, there's always two parts. There's the demand and supply. Demand is probably driven by interest rates more than anything else in real estate, and supply is the number of houses available. On the interest rate side, we can see last week, again, we ended at a slightly lower rate, 6.27, which is about 0.5% lower than it was a few weeks ago. It's obviously below a full percent where it was in April. And these rates are, I don't know whether they'll last or not. I suspect not. I believe there's a lot of juicing of the numbers on the part of the government to try to tilt the election for those who are in power currently. But either way, the rates are the rates. It's a great opportunity if you're in escrow to lock it in. If you're a seller and you have a buyer who's buying your property, help them get the contingencies cleared so they can close, because at any point rates can change. They can go up, they can go down, but they're great where they are. And as long as rates are where they are, we're going to have plenty of buyers coming into our market looking to buy property. So I think for the current time, our markets can continue to be real healthy. On the supply side, how many houses are available for sale? That number continues to slightly decline. We were at 630,000 back in 29th week, back in June, July, and now we're to 602,000. So about 5% less homes for sale. You'll notice that last year's number, this turquoise, was rising all year. So we're about to meet or cross that path. This was 2 years ago, and we're about to cross that as well if the current trend lines hold. You'll notice that this rate, while higher than these are all pandemic years other than last year. And by far, these are the lowest on record. The pre-pandemic average was in the 800, 900,000 or more properties for sale, and currently about 602. As long as the inventory is this low, we sell about 4 to 5 million houses a year. As long as the inventory is this low, housing prices cannot go down nationally. Now, in different markets, of course, that can change. But in terms of nationally, with so little demand for property, there's really not much that can be done to change the housing prices. Now, on the local market here in Los Angeles, there's a great service I use called Altus Research, and they rank our market today at 37, where it's been for a couple of weeks, and it moved down from 38, 39. It's marginally a seller's market. We've been in the 42, 43 range when the market was hotter, and it's come down a little bit. So I would say the market is stabilizing in the Los Angeles market, closer to a normal market, but still a seller's market. And I see that as an agent myself in terms of how many offers we get, even properties that are not listed for sale, but are under contract. I still get inquiries on those. Okay, the topic of the week. Real estate without human beings. When I look around, I'm 65 years old. The changes in business. I remember when my father took me to a gas station as a little kid, and the independent gas operator was selling out to one of the large oil companies. There used to be independent gas stations. Now they're all owned by a few major oil companies. Same with car repair. There used to be independent car repairs. Now more and more, well, there's still some, more and more are muffler shops with franchises or tire shops with franchises. You see with restaurants, more and more restaurants tend to be chains or regional chains or related to chains overall. What happens is when you have more government regulation and more taxes, the only entities that can survive are big enough to work their way through the regulations or pay off the regulators by lobbying on laws and creating very expensive tax structures to avoid taxes. And so we see this in the general economy. We also see this in real estate. Think about the largest company in real estate by far, we talked about this last week, is Zillow. Zillow's net worth is about $8 billion. The next largest is the eXp Realty at about $2 billion. Zillow's bigger than eXp, Remax, Coldwell Banker, Situate, Keller Williams, all the companies that hold all those national franchises, international franchises combined. Yet, pays no income taxes, pays virtually no state taxes. And so what you have is this massive monopoly destroying competitors. Think about me as a real estate agent. My biggest expense individually every year is taxes, federal taxes and state taxes. Zillow pays zero. So when they say they're going to disrupt the market by competing with agents like me, not only do they have an inherent advantage, but think about the implications on our economy. If the winners in the economy aren't paying taxes, who's left to pay taxes? And that's why we have massive debt. That's why we don't have enough money to pay for infrastructure and things like that in our economy. In real estate, this is now becoming a speeding rocket ship towards destruction of the industry as a result of the lawsuit. Now, this lawsuit that's gone on, I talked about this for the last few weeks. This has been going on for 8 or 10 years. It had great impetus during the Obama administration. And when the Trump administration came into play, they turned off the Department of Justice, which was acting as a bully for the lawsuit and threatening realtors to settle. Once Trump was out of office in 2020, the DOJ picked back up supporting this lawsuit. And the idea was that somehow, and the whole thing is nonsense, and we're going to talk about why, I can show you why I think that's true, that somehow realtors were conspiring, the franchises were conspiring, the MLSs were conspiring to take advantage of buyers and sellers. Well, the opposite's true. If you think about it, these large faceless companies, I mean, when's the last time you got a fair shake from Google or from Facebook? If you ever done business with them and had a problem, you're never going to talk to anybody there. That's the nature of these big corporations. I recently went to a movie personally, and I wrote an email to their customer service saying I had a couple questions. They had 45 minutes of trailers. I said, is that normal? I haven't been to a movie in a while. They had subtitles playing the whole movie. Was that normal? Was it because somebody requested it? Okay, if that's somebody's request. But generally, the subtitles are blocking some of the movie scene. And the temperature, normally movies are cold. And of course, all I get back is some stupid email saying, we're going to refund your money. But they didn't answer the questions, which to me, I'm not going to go to a movie again if that's the experience. It wasn't pleasant. Doesn't matter if it's free. I'm not going to spend 2 or 3 hours if I can't watch the movie and enjoy it and I can't sit in comfort. So this is what happens when you have big companies. They're not accountable to anybody. So let's take a look at, there's interesting news now, because what happens is when you have tyrannical administrations creating monopolies, you end up with the less players eating each other and fighting each other. And that's the case here we have in the news this week in TechCrunch, which is one of the darlings of the venture capital world. Those are people who fight wars with money and pay off politicians. Redfin is trying to defend itself against this new real estate startup. So you might have thought the guy who was the main plaintiff in the real estate lawsuit would be a hero. You know, Henry Ford was a hero in America. Now you might say he made too much money or didn't treat people fairly, but at some level, he brought down the cost of cars and made them available to the average American, put his name on the brand, and built cars. This guy, though, who won the lawsuit, the last thing he wants is his name in front, because he's really a shyster. I mean, he's going to make a $400 million lawsuit settlement, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars. He's investing it in some tech startup. And already Redfin, another company that's some favorite of all the venture capitalists, doesn't pay any taxes, is out to destroy real estate agents and dishonestly. They're now defending themselves against these guys. So now you have Redfin and this other company, I think it's called Landian, already fighting, and they haven't even done any business, this new Landian company. That just tells you how I think Redfin is reading the tea leaves correctly as I am, which is the goal of our regulators, our state regulators, national regulators, Department of Justice, and the venture capital firms is to have 1 or 2 or 3 big real estate companies that do everything, buy all your houses through Google and Zillow. Why would that be great? Well, the answer is, you're about to see why that, I think the answer is. So here you have the result of this lawsuit. And I talked about this last week. You had a professor of law review the contracts. At the end of the day, did the lawsuit serve the buyers and sellers by making the relationships clear? No. In fact, here's this professor of law from Buffalo, University of Buffalo. Most buyer farms are complicated and confusing. Buyers will not be able to understand them and will likely get burned by provisions they don't anticipate. I see this happening already. I have very sophisticated buyers who do not understand the process, and they contact me in frustration. So what does Landian, which is the venture capital firm as a result of this lawsuit, propose to do? Oh, they're going to revolutionize the industry. So I love this. This is a typical venture capital kind of, we sit around with a bunch of stupid PowerPoints. Do you think this is going to work? We're going to sell your house and avoid the real estate agent. Home buyer beware. There's new laws. Oh, that looks very scary. And then they talk about how they make the easy listing import, they schedule tours, make offers easily, big savings. All this has been available to customers all along. There's discount real estate agents. There has been all along. But here's the funny part. When you look at their actual offering, they're going to charge customers $49 a tour. Now, anybody here who watches this, if you ever bought a house before, did you pay to go look at a house? No. They're only going to charge you $49. And I will say, I've had customers call me that I wanted to show, and I couldn't make it, and I paid a colleague $50, $60 to show a property. But I pay that as the agent. I don't charge my customer. I would never offer that to have a customer pay that. Price per offer, $199. Last year, the average buyer who closed escrow wrote 5 offers. So you're going to write $199 one time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 before you get into escrow? I don't think so. Is that, do you feel like that's a good deal? Anybody here watching this, buying a house who's paid money to write an offer? No, never happened before. Now, what they do offer is that, in this case, they're showing you how much lower you pay, and then they'll also offer to charge you a flat fee, I think of $50, $100, which again, if you get the house, is great. The problem is not filling out the paperwork and sending it to the listing agent and getting approved. The problem is getting the house. It's working the listing agent. It's convincing them to accept your offer. It's negotiating. It's getting the lender on board. It's getting the lender to talk to the listing agent. It was easy as submitting forms. Facebook and LinkedIn and Google would have all the real estate business. It's not, because for the most part, it requires human beings. And this landing company, it's so funny. They're going to charge you to show you a property. That's been free my entire career. And that's the success. So we end up with contracts that buyers can't read. Oh, here's another one. You can't look at a property without signing a contract. The contract includes your compensation. So now you can't even go look at a property without picking a realtor, committing to them, and signing some sort of a commission agreement. I guess it's cancelable and negotiable and all that. But my point is, most buyers aren't going to know that. So now you have to pay to see a property, you have to sign a contract to see a property, you have to commit to an agent with a commission, you have to pay to write offers, you have to pay for a consult. That's not progress. Now, if Landian and Redfin and Zillow and government regulators and the Department of Justice are successful at destroying the real estate agent business, if they're successful at that, then there'll be no alternative. You'll have to pay $50 to go look at a house. It shouldn't be that way. Just like when Uber Star was very cheap, and their whole existence was they were violating local laws. They had enough money, they raised enough money through venture capitalists to fight the lawsuits long enough to put out of business taxi cabs to create a dominant presence. And now they both raise their rates, and if you're a user, in my experience, lower the quality of the service. And that's what's going to happen here with real estate. They're already going to charge $50 just to see a property that was free. Last month it was free. Now, thanks to Mr. Stitzer's lawsuit, you're going to pay $50 to see a property and $199 to write an offer. Stupid. Can I just say stupid? Okay, so at the end of the day, I think it's worth paying attention to all around us as consumers. We have a choice. I feel bad. I saw this local fruit vendor at 2 blocks from my house. And my wife and I used to go there. He had great fruit. But we also knew the man. We knew his wife. And, we purposely used him because it was great fruit first. And we felt like supporting him. I guess we didn't do it enough because he's gone out of business. And I think at the end of the day, I want to be competitive. I want to be valuable to my customers. I want to save them money and get them houses they otherwise aren't going to get. And otherwise, I understand you're not going to use me. But to assume that it's better to destroy an industry because it'd be much better to have Facebook or Google represent you buying your houses, I think you're making a big mistake. And I think that this is the result of, we have these government officials and these lawyers who've never bought or sold a house, never worked with a buyer or seller of a house, who are creating national policies without discussions, without input, and without practice, and without the earned experience and knowledge of the actual business. And it is destructive. It should be mocked. It should be fought at every bet. And here you have Redfin, who refers to the lawsuit, literally in their own words, as their partner in arm, because they want to destroy the real estate industry. They just want to end up being in play, along with Zillow. These are companies that do not support our country, do not support your state, do not support your community. And at the end of the day, as customers, I don't believe they give you good service. And as realtors, for sure, they don't give us good service. Okay, that covers that topic. I'd love to get your feedback. How do you feel about the new contracts? How do you feel about paying to see a property? How do you feel about paying to write an offer? You don't have to with me. If you're going to buy a house, let's talk about it. I'll refer you to an agent who'd be glad to continue to give you great service at a reasonable price and only charge you if you buy a house and not up front. Okay, let's take a look at the news real quick. We went along in this segment, so I'm going to go through some of the rest, but some great stuff this week, I think, in the news that should not be missed. One is kind of what I call the magic of interest rates. You know, it's not that interest rates aren't important. I track them every week. But it's like magically there's some unicorn or dragons that affect the rates. It's not a factor of the government spending money it doesn't have, or the economy growing or not growing, or people having money to buy things or not, or invest or not. It's always some magical thing. Here's an example. JP Chase, don't forget, this is the private banker to Jeffrey Epstein and the private bankers to the international slave trade, sex trade that Chase was involved with. Their top economist says the Fed should cut rates by 0.5 point this month. Okay. He says the Federal Reserve should cut their interest rates by 0.5 point this month. Market rates have come down a bit. Why should the Fed cut the rates? What's the purpose of the Federal Reserve? Is the Federal Reserve's job to push the economy, or is the Federal Reserve's job to reflect the economy? And that's one of the things where I think when people get political, they have an agenda. And keep in mind, JP Morgan would make billions, if not more, trillions in value if rates come down. Because they're buying and selling instruments, and the lower the rate, the more valuable the assets they have in their hands are worth. And so what they're really saying is the federal government should help us make an extra $10 billion or $100 billion or $1 trillion. Believe me, the last person JP Morgan's worried about is you. If rates go too low and create long-term inflation and destroy our economy, believe me, they have plenty of gold and plenty of other hard assets and other ways to protect themselves. So when a JP economist says what the Fed should do, the Fed theoretically should answer to the population, to the people, to the country it's elected and built to serve, not JP Morgan. The last thing we need are bankers telling the Federal Reserve what they should do, especially when those always line up in their interest financially. And again, we're in the mess we're in because bankers like JP Morgan have had so much control. Here's another example, I think, of kind of companies not, first, using interest rates, and second of all, not serving customers and consumers. UWM, most people don't know who they are, but they're a huge, United Wholesale Mortgage, huge lender to many mortgage brokers throughout the country. So they're the kind of company that does mortgages without really having consumer feedback. And that's, to me, any company that's based on not working with consumers as part of their business, they do that because they are not worthy of working with consumers. They act like they want to make money without getting dirty, talking to the dirty masses. But in reality, they're just a company that would destroy our economy as long as they came out on top. And so they debut a new 75 base point incentive for refinances, meaning here we have an economy that's starved for home buyers, and we have homeless people who can't afford houses, and people can't afford houses. And UWM is going to take their capital, not helping that, the opposite. They're going to refinance people who have houses so they have lower rates, so they stay there and don't sell their house. I'm sure it's good business for UWM and their customers. It's just bad policy for us as Americans. You wonder, well, how can that happen? Wouldn't they price the loan based on the cost and a fair profit? Why would they incent one kind or the other? And I don't really know why. I don't know the company that well. But again, I think you want to look at when companies emphasize refinances, they are making the problem worse, not better. They're certainly not partners in helping us as an economy solve the problem. Here's another article from JP Chase Morgan, again, the private banker to the international sex trade, Jeffrey Epstein. Cash could stay attractive for months despite rate cuts. So on one hand, you had one arm of JP Morgan saying we need to cut rates. Here you have another public relations release saying even if rates are cut, it won't affect the value of cash, meaning we're not going to invest in your economy. We're not going to take our money, and if rates go down, we're not going to use that to invest and help you make money. We're going to hold on to ourselves and benefit and just pocket the profits. And so cash is can stay attractive. This is the same JP Morgan that's telling the Federal Reserve that they should lower rates. So I don't know one way or the other what they're really saying. Here's another one. Again, under interest rate kind of magic. I just feel like, of course, the lower rates go, the more people can buy a house, the more everything is more valuable because there's more money in the economy. It's not magic, it's just simple mathematics. Mortgage rates falling to 5% would get this party started. I don't know what this party would be, but if mortgage rates are currently at 6, getting them down 0.25% will make things better. Getting them down to 5, of course, but 4, better yet, I guess, more activity yet. So again, sometimes I feel like the press puts these numbers out to get headlines. What it doesn't do is help people, because the reality is, if you can afford a house now, you shouldn't wait till rates drop to 5% if they're going to drop to 5%. Because if you bought the house now and the rates drop a year later to 5%, you can refinance and benefit from that. Versus if you wait till they go down to 5%, you're going to stand in line with all the other buyers who are all of a sudden motivated to buy a house since rates are at 5% and the party started. So the last thing you want to do is wait for the party to start. Okay, also in the news this week, Los Angeles under bad policy and also dehumanization. This one kind of combines both at one time. You have city planners who've never bought or sold property, developed property. They're going to change zoning laws dramatically here. And one of them is they're going to allow churches to build homes. So think about that. Now, I don't know about you. I'm a religious person. I'm not Christian. So when it says churches, it may or may not include synagogues. It probably does, though by nature, I'm religious. We have small parking lots because we walk to our synagogue, the nature of religious Jews. But okay, I'm all for more Catholic churches. I think they're great. I think when people are religious and turn to God and want to improve themselves morally, we have a better society. And so I think what this does is two things that are wrong. One, it turns the pastors and the leaders of the church into becoming real estate developers rather than churches. I mean, what they're saying is, hey, don't worry that you have less people coming to your church. Instead of working on attracting people to church, become real estate developers. Sell the property or rent the property and become a nonprofit, or have people live there and you sell them food. The whole thing is just so sick. Why would we have the government telling churches to build on their parking lots? I don't understand that. Now, if we're saying the churches can do whatever they want on their land and that's new, I believe they could have before anyhow. But to say that they're encouraging them to destroy the size of the parking lot that lets people come to church just to build houses because the city is unable to build houses or unwilling to build houses otherwise, to me, just is a very creepy proposition. I guess that's just the word that comes to mind. Here's an update on the affordable housing. We have a state government that does not want to let cities decide what cities want to be. Beverly Hills does not want to have as much affordable housing as the state government is forcing it to, for reasons. Beverly Hills has designed itself to be a high quality city. They have very little crime because of the great zoning and regulations. They have very little crime. They have larger lots for their homes. And because they have low crime and nice properties, their properties are worth a lot. And businesses go there, do really, really well. In the state of California, which now has the largest population of poverty in America, says, no, we don't want Beverly Hills to be nice. We want Beverly Hills to be as crappy as the rest of the state. So you need to build affordable housing. And of course, the city is going to fight that. And the government's suing, and this is going on and on and on. It's gotten ugly to where the Beverly Hills, they can't even issue zoning permits for additions and things like that for houses. And so, you have to ask the question, do you want the state to tell the city what your city component of housing has to be? To me, that does not seem like the American way. It does not seem to be freedom. People should be able to gather together, they form a city, and then have rules that work in their city. We're not saying that people can't come and buy houses in Beverly Hills. I don't live in Beverly Hills, by the way. I live south of it. My synagogue's in Beverly Hills. And I thank God for that, because Beverly Hills Police Department gives us great security, where LAPD has allowed riots in front of synagogues just a few blocks away. So to destroy the city of Beverly Hills and make it more like Los Angeles, to me, doesn't serve anybody. But our governor and our government system is intent on making Beverly Hills as lousy a city to live in as Los Angeles. That's very sad. Speaking of the city government, though, how effective are they actually at real estate? This was an amazing article, something that I've known about for a long time, but it just came out and I just wanted to share. I couldn't wait when I got this one. The VA has to build more housing on the West LA campus. If you've ever driven down Wilshire Boulevard near Veteran Avenue, there's a huge facility, huge campus that for years was like completely empty, it seemed. But in reality, not only did not build housing where there was older housing had to be replaced, but they'd actually leased out property to UCLA, to local schools, to the Brentwood School, for example. And so rather than using the land to help veterans have houses, the VA in West Los Angeles has been making life great for UCLA students. I believe Jackie Robinson Baseball Stadium is on the VA leased land, as well as the Brentwood School, which is a very expensive private school. And it's interesting that in Los Angeles, which is very much pro-public education, that they would have a sweetheart deal for the Brentwood School. And so at the end of the day, here's a case where you have land bought and owned by the Veterans Administration not being used for VA housing, literally being used by other organizations. And people got paid off to do that. You're talking about tens and hundreds of millions of dollars of the most valuable real estate in Los Angeles. This is Wilshire Boulevard at the 405. There is no land, I can imagine, certainly commercial land in Los Angeles, that would be worth more than development right there. And this has gone on for decades, that politicians and developers have been paying each other and making profits off of land that should have been used for a veteran. So I'm not a veteran. My father was. My father-in-law was and was a colonel, and then he ran a VA clinic. So my wife's a military family. And again, this just shows how everything the government does, despite their state intentions, just doesn't work. It's one thing to say you want to build housing for veterans. They're not doing it. They could have sold this land and given it to veterans to get medical care elsewhere. They could have sold this land and given it to veterans to go buy houses elsewhere. Instead, they leased it to organizations to make money. The government officials, the government officials end up with jobs with these people, end up with stipends from these people. You know how all that works. It's just disgraceful. And the people are picketing that, and the veterans are picking that. It's only because the veterans are so disempowered, old, and have such bad health care that they're not riding the streets over this, but it really is disgraceful. Okay, so that's the news for this week. What do you think? What do you think of this lawsuit? Is it going to improve real estate? Is it going to disrupt the real estate industry, maybe for the better? I don't think so. Give me your comments. Like, dislike, put a comment in. Subscribe if you like this. I'm at Bill Gross Probate or BillGrossProbate.com. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.